Hello and welcome. On the show today, we will be talking about the Nigeria Development and Finance Forum 2024, even as we look at the road to economic and social welfare transformation. Also, Nigeria is set to trade crude oil commodities exchange. We'll be talking about that, and also we'll be looking at the investment opportunities in Nigeria for foreigners. Welcome to Business Edge. I am Lekon Obanjo. We start with top business headlines from across the continent. Ghana's Finance Minister Mohamed Amen Adam announced on Sunday that the country expects to receive a draft memorandum of understanding from its bilateral creditors in May. The MOU will solidify a deal to restructure $5.4 billion of loans with official creditors, including China and France, which was agreed upon in January. This restructuring is a significant milestone in Ghana's efforts to achieve debt relief and overcome its severe economic crisis. It is also expected to unlock further disbursements from its $3 billion program with the International Monetary Fund. Minister Adam is confident that the IMF's executive board will approve the review of its staff level agreement in June. Now, the First Bank of Nigeria Limited has announced the appointment of Olusegun Alebiosu as its acting managing director effective from April 2024. The appointment comes after the resignation of Dr. Adesola Adeduntan, who had served as the bank's managing director for 9 years. Alebiosu's appointment was confirmed in a statement signed by the acting company secretary, Adewale Arogundade. The appointment is subject to the approval of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Alebiosu, who previously served as the group executive and chief risk officer of First Bank, will assume the role of acting CEO and lead the bank during this transition period. Finally, Portuguese oil company Galp Energia has completed the initial phase of exploration in the Mopane field off the coast of Namibia. The company estimates that the field could contain at least 10 billion barrels of oil. Testing operations conducted at the Mopane 1X well in January and the Mopane 2X well in March revealed significant light oil columns in high-quality reservoir sands located in the Orange Basin. The Mopane field has seen several oil and gas discoveries by other companies such as Shell and Total Energies. The successful exploration could position Mopane as an important commercial discovery, potentially boosting Namibia's oil production. And those are the African business stories. When we return from this break, we'll bring you market updates. Now, the NGX all-share index and market capitalization depreciated by 2.71%. Similarly, all other indices finished lower except NGX sovereign bond, which appreciated by 3.57%, while the NGX ASEM and NGX oil and gas indices closed flat. Now, 13 equities appreciated during the week, lower than 19 equities in the previous week, and 62 equities depreciated higher than 40 in the previous week, while 79 equities remain unchanged, lower than 95 recorded in the penultimate week. So at this point, we quickly take a look at the numbers, starting with the all-share index. And there you have it. Of course, for a couple of months, it has been around 100,000 threshold, but now we are seeing it closing at about 99,539.75, and this means that the total value of shares on the exchange is declining, and you can see the percentage differential in the negative of minus 2.71%. Let's now look at the market capitalization and see how it performed. Of course, we have before now seen the threshold in around 59 trillion, but then there's been a descendancy in the numbers, and we have it at 56.2 trillion naira. Of course, with the same percentage differential in the deficit of 2.71%. Let's quickly look at the top price gainers for last week. And there you have it. Morrison tops the charts with a closing of 3 naira 72 kobo, followed by Guinness Nigeria with 55 naira. Academy Press 1 naira 91 kobo. Prestige Assurance of 61 kobo closing, and Thomas, which closed at 2 naira 14 kobo. And this is despite the decline that we have seen in the performance of the shares on the, of course, Nigerian bourse. And we see these ones have actually appreciated with a differential of 45.31% for Morrison, which is a huge leap for this particular company, and Guinness having about 10.00% in a percentage differential, with the Academy, Prestige, and Thomas sharing the single digits of plus 9.77, 8.93, and 8.63%. We quickly take a look now at the top losers for last week, and that is the GT Co. that closed at 33 naira 50 kobo. Unity Bank 1 naira 62 kobo. Livestock Feeds 1 naira 45 kobo. Japan Gold closing at 1 naira 67 kobo, and Chimes at the bottom there with 1 naira 70 kobo. You see the differentials all in the negatives, all in the double digits, and that shows that these stocks have actually lost an appreciable sum in what they've been able to pull for last week. Let's quickly now look at the sectoral performance. Of course, we have the banking industry also dropping the balls there at 11.46%, followed by insurance at 2.80%. Oil and gas, of course, closed flat. Consumer goods minus 0.96%, and industrial goods losing at minus 2.71%. And this just about concludes how the sectoral performance and, of course, the different stocks on the Nigerian bourse performed last week. We now delve into our next conversation on the show. Do stay with us. We'll be into it in a bit. The Nigeria Development and Finance Forum, a platform designed to bridge the gap between international investors, policymakers, and Nigerians living abroad, is shifting its focus towards addressing domestic policy issues and attracting international interest towards Nigeria. Looking at the road to economic and social welfare transformation, the NDFF 2024 is aiming to support a comprehensive reform agenda for the Nigerian economy, and key areas are like fiscal policy, achieving monetary stability, and improving social welfare. And these are the industry-specific concerns for the NDFF. And to help us understand this better, I have G.D. Akintunde, Director, Nigeria Development and Finance Forum, right here in our studios. Thank you so much for coming to us to talk about this.
Thank you very much for having me on your program.
Beautiful. Now, the Nigeria Development and Finance Forum was created to inform both local and foreign investors, including policymakers, about policies, opportunities, and investment climate in Nigeria. So how would you describe Nigeria's business ecosystem and the different policies of government so designed to guide its activities?
Okay, thank you very much. What we can say about the Nigerian business landscape is that it is transitional. We have recently transitioned from the last administration to the current one, and we definitely have seen that even if it is in terms of style, there is a difference that we have seen. But on a larger note, I think that the Nigerian economy, like most world's economies, is going through a transition whereby the emphasis is shifting from maybe simply economic growth, but to sustainable development. This means that we're talking about green development, low carbon growth, and then there's a lot of emphasis about the stakeholder economy, whereby societies and broader categories of people, apart from the policy people, and then of course people who own businesses, are the key players and the key concerns that an economy has. So there is a transition that is social in nature, that tries to bring in multiple stakeholders into the economic space and see what impact their policies are having on them. Nigeria is part of these conversations, and we are hoping that we can, at our conference coming up next month in Abuja, shed light on the nature of the transitions in the Nigerian economy, because really the transition itself is multidimensional. It is going on in the energy sector, it is going on in the social sector, and I really do think that when we look at the financial markets, we have also seen certain changes there. So that's the nature of the economy of Nigeria at this time. I think that people are hoping that they will have more clarity about what to expect. There's a flux, and people really want to be appropriately guided on what to expect.
Beautiful. So let's give the policies of government a bit of clarity, even as we continue to look at the transitioning and what to expect. Now, we know that there are some domestic policies that have been promulgated by the Nigerian government, both past and present. I'd like you to highlight maybe one or two of them that have been stifling economic growth in the country and discouraging investors from coming to the country. And these policies, of course, that need to be addressed.
Yes, thank you very much. I would say that if we were to itemize policies that stakeholders believe are stifling their businesses and stifling economic growth more broadly, I mean, the list is going to be quite long. But what I would like to say is that currently, I think that there is the absence of an overarching reform agenda that encapsulates the various segments of the economy for comprehensive reform. I think that that is one of the main issues that we can now see with the economy. Then, of course, we can talk about the lack of coherence, between policy statements and policy actions. So that divergence is causing quite a lot of issues. In fact, just simply understanding what exactly to believe of the economic landscape. So I do think that there is a need for a comprehensive policy agenda since, for instance, the current administration has now settled in the office. We hope to see, I mean, something like we saw in the early 2000s, like the needs, the National Economic Empowerment and Development Strategy. That was a policy that cuts across the economic sectors and provided a very comprehensive reform for the Nigerian economy. So we're hoping that we will see that at some point. I also think that we have seen some movements in the financial segments of markets with regard to how fiscal policy and monetary policy, can be given a new direction. But a key question in that regard is whether some of the measures that we have seen so far can be sustainable or not.
Yeah, talking about sustaining policies, there are other issues as regards this, which has to do with implementation of these policies, because over time, even as we've seen some harsh economic policies, the Nigerian government has also been able to come up with some fantastic economic policies, a white paper that, of course, if well implemented, would transform the economic landscape of the country. But then when it comes to implementation, it's been poor. And when it comes to sustaining those policies, it has also been abysmal. So why is it that that is the bane of Nigeria's economic policies when they're being rolled out when it comes to sustainability and implementation? Why is that a big challenge?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge. And I also think that we have to have a different idea about policy making. Policy making should entail both what the policies themselves are, and then it should also provide a roadmap for implementing the policies. I think that these essential components are important because if you disaggregate the policies from how they can be successfully implemented, we will have the kind of situations that we have here now. So that is why, for instance, at this conference, we are not presuming that we don't have the necessary policies. So we are now concerned about the roadmap of implementation. and this is very, very key. Like you said, it's been the bane of policy making in Nigeria, and of course the bane of the economy itself. We must be able to map out appropriate strategies that will translate policy goals into real achievements. And I do think that that itself requires a lot of attention. And we are convening our conference to shine light on the need for these very specific aspects, of policy to complement what is simply stated as what government wants to do.
All right, fantastic. So we'll look at what this conference tends to gain in terms of robust discussions, because we see that the International Monetary Fund has come out to say that the Nigerian economy will grow to about 3.3% in 2024 from 3.0%. But then some businesses, institutions, and citizens are not so optimistic about the economic outlook for Nigeria in 2024. So for the deliberations that we will be having in this conference and the people that will be coming to speak, what should be the focal point in terms of policies and instruments and framework that should come to light if Nigeria is to scale up its economic trajectory and, of course, its economic potential?
Yeah, that's a great question. And my personal perspective about this is that we have seen in recent years how economic policies in the country has focused a lot on building things, building infrastructure, building roads, building rails, But I really do think that the right emphasis should actually be on building people, because I believe that the biggest potential of the Nigerian economy, it's not even in the population. It is the capacity that the population can deliver, and that is a function of know-how. So I think that policy should begin to shift to, generally speaking, building Nigerians and building our capacity as a people. And once we are able to start doing that again, we will begin to see a different set of outcomes. Now, until the 2000s, for instance, there was a lot of emphasis on people when you look at the key economic agenda at that time. So, for instance, in the 1970s, we had the Operation Feed the Nation, so that talks about the welfare of the people, that people don't go hungry and that the country is food secure. Subsequent to that, we also had the Green Revolution, but I think that after the year 2000, we began to see certain shifts. For instance, when Nigeria, was pursuing an agenda of being the top, one of the top 20 economies in the world, that doesn't say anything about the plight of the people. And then when we shifted focus to infrastructure investment, it doesn't say anything about the people. Now we are talking about building a 1 trillion naira economy. It doesn't say anything about the people. So what we want to do at NDFF is to bring back the people as a focus of economic making, policy making in the country.
All right, Jide Akintunde, Director, Nigeria Development and Finance Forum. Thank you so much for your time on the show. We hope that when all these areas are looked into, most especially revitalizing the Nigerian markets and businesses, the green economy, the blue economy, and investments are channeled into all these lines, it can help foster economic growth for Nigeria. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
But I'll quickly go on a short break, and when we return, we'll be looking at investment opportunities in Nigeria for foreigners. Do stay with us. Nigeria, Belgium, and Luxembourg are working on leveraging their strengths to boost trade. Nigeria's vast agricultural sector can supply Belgium's food processing industry, while Belgium's logistics expertise can enhance Nigeria's exports. Now, Luxembourg's financial hub can facilitate investments, fostering economic growth and cooperation between the three nations. So this morning in our studios, we have Collins Inweke, consultant, Belgium Luxembourg Business Forum. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much, Lekam, for having me.
Beautiful. And we also have Thomas de Boel, who is the Secretary General, Belgium-Luxembourg Business Forum. He's also right here live in our studios. Thank you so much for coming around.
Thank you.
So let me start with Collins. Now, Belgium, Nigeria, and Luxembourg are major players in specific sectors. When you talk about Belgium, you're looking at a leader in logistics, diamonds, and chemicals. Nigeria boasts a large and growing agricultural sector. And when you look at Luxembourg and the financial banking sector, fantastic. So how can these trends be leveraged for mutually beneficial trade?
So once again, Lekan, well, the philosophy here is use what you have to get what you don't have. Now, it's not like there is a total absence of all of this plethora of, services, goods, and expertise in all the countries, but it is about scale and about, the extent to which they are present. Like you rightly mentioned, take one instance, petrochemical. That is something that, Belgium is very much known for, and Nigeria has, over the years, been, a partner with Belgium in that regard, because, as you probably know, crude oil is being refined in Belgium and then shipped back to Nigeria. But that is now becoming, a story of the past, because, as you know, Dangote refinery is coming on board, and which means that the refining of oil in Nigeria would be scaled up. Now, does that mean that there aren't other opportunities? Absolutely not. And that is where the other sectors that you talked about, logistics, infrastructure, development, agriculture and all of that, that is where they now come in. So while we say that, oil is still relevant and people should transact, and are indeed transacting in them, Belgium has something to offer to Nigeria in the area of logistics, and Nigeria in the area of commodities in agriculture. You talked about diamond. Nigeria has a very large deposits of some of the, minerals that Belgium needs, to keep its market up and alive. So yes, a symbiotic relationship has been on. And, the forum that we are organizing is actually helping to accentuate those areas and get people transacting actively.
Okay, let me talk to Thomas now. Now, Thomas, we have a common place between Nigeria and Luxembourg in the area of the financial sector, the banking industry, the steel industry, and the industrial sector. Three critical areas that are said to be money spinners if the right kind of policies and investments come to these areas. Now, how do you think Luxembourg can rub off on Nigeria, looking at these three critical sectors?
Well, of course, if we are looking at Nigeria, Luxembourg, I think the aim there is to facilitate connections between Nigerian companies looking to have access to these financing groups. Of course, we have the European Investment Bank that is situated in Luxembourg. So these are all opportunities that we are bringing forward to the business forum that is happening in Brussels in September. And we are focusing on three economies. So on the one side, we of course have Nigeria, then we have Belgium, and then we have Luxembourg. So what we are doing is creating a bridge between these three economies and linkages between businesses. So what we will be focused on in the Business Forum in September in Brussels is to create B2B, B2G meetings for the Nigerian delegation that will be coming to Brussels in September. So of course we have to see what is the interest of the Nigerian companies coming to Brussels to see how we can best support them with their business development, looking at the economies of Belgium and Luxembourg.
Okay. Now, Collins, we've talked about a couple of sectors, and we, of course, rolled out the potential and what it portends for these countries. Now, are there bureaucratic hurdles or inefficiencies hindering trade flows between these two countries, despite the strength of these sectors, if well harnessed?
Certainly. And that is on both sides. Now, let me begin with Nigeria, because that is where you have, the most hindrances. There is nobody who wants to be honest to himself that wouldn't admit that, Nigeria isn't one of those, difficult places to do business. So the ease of doing business is an issue, has been for quite a while, but obviously you ask yourself, even as difficult as it is to do business in Nigeria, how come, we still have a very good presence of, foreign companies that are doing business here and more actually coming in? The reason is simply because over the years, successive governments, particularly the current one, have shown very, serious intentions and indeed have put one or two things in place to ease, doing business. I know for a fact that within the office of the vice president, there is a unit actually working on that and, organizing meetings and all of that. So yes, that is an issue. One of the things that people talk about, especially when we go into the area of, non-oil export, is certification, okay? People talk about the fact that the bar is so very high that, Nigerian, commodity traders find it difficult to meet the standards set by Belgium and the EU. That is not entirely correct. The reason it's not correct is that what you don't know surpasses you. And so one of the things that the Business Forum is doing is actually laying bare what the guidelines are, what the procedures are. But not just laying them bare, we are also bringing on board expertise, the people who have the skills and the knowledge to guide you through the step after giving you all the information that you need. So no, it is not insurmountable. It is just that you have to have the right information to know what to do and what not to do. And also on the Nigerian side, because there have been Belgian companies that complain of having their fingers burnt in the past and have actually retreated. Now they still continue to see the figures rolling out of Nigeria, beautiful figures that presents huge opportunities for them. And so they want to re-engage. This time around, they are taking very serious care, and that is why we're bringing on board lawyers on both sides, both on the Nigerian side and on the Belgian side. Thomas, for instance, is the COO of an international law firm in Antwerp, Belgium. They stand ready to guide people through those legislative guidelines that will help them to surmount some of the difficulties on both sides.
Oh, Collins, we talked about the figures that seem to be attractive to investors and would-be partners, but then we see a Nigerian economy that has dropped the ball from being the first or the largest economy in Africa to now drop into around the fourth in Africa, with South Africa taking the first. We've seen the economy that with government policies, as of course, according to stakeholders and economists, are said to be rash and brash, are negatively affecting the growth that we should have seen in the Nigerian economy. And when you look at other sectors of the economy, you discover that it's quite erratic. People cannot predict, investors cannot predict, they cannot be sure that when they put their investment in these sectors, they'll be able to recoup on their investments. So how attractive would you say the figures are when we have these lingering challenges as we see resurfacing in the Nigerian economy?
Leka, when you look at, the short term, I mean the figures, the recent figures, which as a matter of fact, economists have looked at and said that these are shock therapies. These are shock reactions to, what is perceived to be long-term policies that will ultimately begin to deliver the dividends. Now, the short-term, effect that they are having is some of these, more challenges that businesses have got to face. But you see, the message, the gospel to be preached here is the fact that these have not come to stay. These are short-term, impacts, short-term shocks. And as business, you need to have a growth strategy that looks at not just the short term, but the mid-term. And when you approach it from that perspective, you see a reason to keep the faith. You see a reason to actually, go for the long-term impact. rather than looking at, just the short-term effect of, policy changes.
All right, Collins, we definitely look at the growth strategy that you talked about, but let's quickly go on a break. When we return, we'll talk to Thomas, something that has to do with renewable energy, ICT, and creatives, which is a strong forte for Nigeria also, and we look at what growth or benefits can come from that. We're going to big break. We'll be right back. You're watching Business Edge, and we have been taking a look at the investment opportunities that international investors can tap into, and we've been looking at it from the angle of Belgium, Luxembourg, and Nigeria, three countries that are showing interest in synergizing their economic potential to bring about a benefit for them. And we have been talking to Collins Nweke, who is the consultant, Belgium Luxembourg Business Forum, and Thomas De Boel, who is the Secretary General, Belgium Luxembourg Business Forum. So let me quickly bring Thomas into this discussion now. You've talked about a few areas that you know that Luxembourg can bring about some economic growth to Nigeria, and there can be some sort of synergy and benefits for mutual benefits for the two countries. Now, beyond that, are there emerging areas like renewable energy, the ICT, creative industries, these three strong areas that Nigeria is also hoping to leverage to also scale up its economic potential between Belgium, Luxembourg, and Nigeria?
Well, definitely. If you look at these three sectors that you just mentioned, first of all, we have to look at Nigeria. You have a very young population, so you have a workforce that is ready, that is available. And of course, looking at renewable energy, we will be thinking about solar energy. Nowadays, you have large corporations having solar panels on all of their production facilities and so on. So you need a workforce to make those installations. Same looking at ICT. You need high-tech qualified workforce that you have here readily available in Nigeria. So I think when we look at the companies coming from Belgium, coming from Luxembourg, what we encourage them is to set up locally in Nigeria. Because I think as a company, if you are serious about Nigeria, you have to look at setting up a local company, having a director, having a local team. So I think definitely these are key sectors where we see growth for investment, growth for business. And I think you also have to take into consideration that most European companies, they are first looking at trading with a country and then looking how the volumes grow. And of course, if it makes sense for them to set up something locally, they will do that. And then also with the chamber that is organizing the business forum, CBL-ACP, we have a local representative here in Nigeria, so we can assist our members and our partners when they are looking to do business or invest in Nigeria.
Thomas, you agree with me that we have infrastructural gaps in Nigeria. When you look at the ICT sector, the penetration level is poor. The connectivity is also not encouraging. You look at the renewable energy sector and you see that it's in its infant stage because the Nigerian government is just about tinkering with, transitioning into renewable energy. And when you look at the creative industry, the structure is not so robust. So aren't these challenges that might discourage investments or these countries, most especially Belgium and Luxembourg? Wouldn't that, somehow discourage them from wanting to partner with Nigeria?
Well, of course, where people see, I would say, issues and gaps, we as a chamber, we see opportunities because we have been at that stage in the past in our economies in Belgium and Luxembourg. So we know how to overcome those gaps. So I would say for our Belgium, Luxembourg companies, they look at it in a different way. They look at the situation here in Nigeria and say, okay, this is how it's being done at the moment. This is what we can bring in. This is the R&D, this is the technology that we can bring in to make sure that those gaps are overcome. So of course, we have to face the reality that there are gaps there, but for us, how we present it to our companies that, look, there's an opportunity for your company to come in, provide your services, your technologies, and so on. But what we always stress them is that when you are serious about a country like Nigeria, you have to think about having a local entity so you can really penetrate the market, have your own workforce, have let's say, after-sales team to make sure that you connect with your customer base and you build a long-term relationship. So I would rephrase it in opportunities to provide, quality ICT, and that's across the board of all the sectors that were highlighted earlier on.
All right, Collins, earlier on you talked about growth strategy. Let's trim that down to the agricultural sector in Nigeria, because we know that Nigeria has a vast base in that. Now, in terms of expertise and technology, what kind of growth strategy do you think can come into play there to improve the value chains along that line and, of course, increase the export volume that can be done looking at that particular sector in terms of products and what can be produced?
Very important question. Thank you, Lekan, for throwing it up. As a matter of fact, Thomas talked about the fact that some of the challenges that are currently being faced in Nigeria are things that Belgium and Luxembourg had faced in the past. But of course, the world is moving at a very, very alarming speed. Take, for instance, the deployment of technology in agriculture, the use of drone to dictate, infections and all of that. Even the use of drone for weeding. They are being deployed in Belgium and Luxembourg at the moment. The technology is there locally, manufactured and all of that. Now, we also know that even in Belgium, these are deployed by, the large-scale rich farmers. But there is also this model, you can call it a cooperative model, where, such services are offered to the smallholders, okay? No, there is nothing stopping anyone, from actually transferring such technology in Nigeria when we are now talking of scaling up the agricultural base. Things like the technology to dry products and make them ready for the European market, like Thomas talked about. It is not about, exporting raw materials out of Nigeria after the agricultural process, but actually processing them here in Nigeria. Even if it means have processing before they are now, in terms of the raw materials, before they are now shipped to, the destination countries for use in production services. So, essentially, the two major opportunities that come up here is the use of the well-advanced research and development technology, and that is where, university exchanges, okay, actually comes in. Because in the universities in Belgium, Leuven, for instance, specifically University of Ghent, they have a well, marked out department that does on that. So linkages between university can create such opportunities, and then in the marketplace itself, okay, those ones that have been deployed as a consequence of the machineries that have been produced can actually be, brought to Nigeria to help the farmers. And what else than, a business forum such as the one taking place in Belgium in September that we are actually on the ground to promote, to take opportunities, in creating that very much needed linkages for those that are in that space.
Okay, so finally, Thomas, quickly your reaction. What are your expectations? We know that this forum will be robust, there will be a lot of engagement and networking. What are your thoughts? What are your expectations?
Yes, well, I think first we have to look at the last edition. We had our last edition last year, where it was very successful. We had more than 200 participants in total for the Luxembourg and Belgium event. So what we had 30 to 40 Nigerian companies that came last year. So of course we are doing the same thing. I think even bigger this year, because as mentioned before, it's being organized by our chamber, CBL-ACP. Just to know, it's the biggest chamber on Africa in Belgium and Luxembourg. So I would say our real focus for this business forum in September in Brussels is to create the linkages. It's companies that come on board today. We'll get their profile, we'll ask them, who do you want to meet, what are your targets, and we start engaging companies in Belgium, preparing the B2B, the B2G, so that they can already link up and talk to each other, have their video calls. So when they come in September, they're not strangers, and hopefully they will be signing deals, contracts, MOUs, and so on. So our aim is to really to have a result-driven business forum, not just to have speeches and presentations. We really want the companies to have concrete engagements, have company visits, visiting Belgian companies, Luxembourg companies. So I would say our view is very positive, and that's why we are here this week in Nigeria. We're having two high-level receptions with the Embassy of Belgium here in Nigeria, which we'll be having one this evening here in Lagos, and we'll have one later on in Abuja. So we are very positive for the outcome of the Business Forum in September.
Okay, Thomas de Boer, Secretary General, Belgium Luxembourg Business Forum, Collins Nweke, Consultant, Belgium Luxembourg Business Forum. Thank you so much for your time, and I must say, happy deliberations.
Thank you so very much, Lekan. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And that's it on today's edition of Business Edge. Do not forget that you can visit our social media handles at News Central TV and also our websites www.newscentral.africa, and also download our mobile app on App Store and Play Store to get robust engagements as we usually serve them to you. My name is Likon Obanjo. Enjoy the rest of your day. But at this time, we must let you know that the summit for the Africa security chiefs, of course, they are deliberating on counterterrorism in Nigeria, and that particular forum is ongoing right now, and we will be bringing you the live feeds.